So, guys, with Jeremy Pena being in a extended home run drought since July, him hitting in front of Maldonado seemingly neutralizes anything he does with the bats, unless there's guys on in front of him. Sunday, Jeremy singles to lead off the bottom of the third, which Maldi then abruptly hits into a double play. And then down 5, bottom of the 5th, Pena doubles to lead off. And instead of pinch hitting for Diaz when you need runs, Maldi again bats, and he grounds out softly into what in all likelihood would have been another double play had Pena been at first. Could Dusty's trust in Martin Maldonado be one of the Astros' biggest weak spots this postseason?
Well, there's no question about that, because it was one of their biggest weak spots over the entirety of the season. And it's not why they lost game 2, right? Lopez dominated them. Fromber stunk. But Dusty, on this subject, we're not tilling new earth here. He's a stubborn old goat. And I mean the long-term usage of goat, the animal, bad decision-making. And whether he's just dug in, I'm going to do it my way until the end, or whether he actually is ignorant to the statistical realities of the situation, not batting Yiner for Maldonado after a leadoff double in the 5th when you're down 5-0 was plain dumb. And if Yiner gets hurt and you're without a third catcher, so be it, right? They did that some points during the regular season. Right, he finally hits for him later in the game. You need to be aggressive when you're down 5-0. And Yiner came in and popped out. It's not like he was likely to hit a 2-run homer to spark a dramatic comeback, but it's about reasonable percentages, intelligent decision-making, right? That cliche about coaches and managers, well, their job is to put players in the best position, the team in the best position to succeed. And at the catcher spot, Dusty has failed to do that way too often. And it reared its very ugly head again in game 2. Again, it didn't decide the game, but it certainly didn't help a chance of jump-starting a huge comeback. If it's 1-0 and the runner's at second, okay, Maldonado's going to sacrifice to try to get him to third with 1 out for Altuve. But 5-0 game, not batting Diaz for Maldonado there. D-U-M, dumb.
I think it's part of the problem. It's on the other side of the ball. Like, if you gave Dusty truth serum, he probably thought Fromber would have given up 10 runs if Maldi wasn't catching him. You know what I mean? Like, I think he sees it that way, to where, if he's not out there, and Maldi needs to be out there to help Hunter Brown along, and he's going to have the same thought process here with Javier. We got to have Maldi out there calling pitches for Javier, or he doesn't have a chance. But I mean, it doesn't come as any surprise to me, just based off that Mariners and Diamondback series to end the regular season, where you could argue Maldi and Abreu are kind of the heroes for the Astros to get in. So I didn't think for a second we'd see a lot of Yiner. I figured Maldi be doing all the work behind the plate, and that's what we've seen pretty much. It's unfortunate Maldi doesn't have a hit yet out of the 2 games, but you also look at Bregman and Tucker combined together; those guys just have 2 hits. So, like Charlie said, it didn't lose you the game. You got to get your Kyle Tuckers, your Alex Bregmans. You got to get those guys going. That's how the Astros win. Dusty's going to keep playing Maldi. There's really no way around it. I'd like to see pinch hitting happen more as well. I'm just kind of done expecting anything to change at this point.
Right, insanity is seeing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Well, there's also a saying, you're never too old to change. Dusty, wow us. You're running out of time on this. And there's always the possibility in a given game, Maldonado pops a mistake into the bleachers. He hit 15 home runs this year. But it's about body of work. It's about laws of probability. And in game 3, you're facing Sonny Gray, who has dominated you regularly in the past. Your pitcher is not very good off what he did the second half of the season. The expectation is you're going to need to put some runs on the board to win. Ditto in game 4. So going with one of the worst offensive regulars in the history of the sport over Yiner Diaz at this point, as if Yiner Diaz is the village idiot of receivers, whereas Menza Maldonado solves all. It's just laughable. And you know what? I do think we are at a tipping point, or have already gotten there, within the organization. This is one of the reasons Dana Brown is going to want, and whether Dana Brown has the authority to make the call, and whether Jim Crane has been pretty invisible in recent weeks. But I do think this will be part of the Dusty epitaph. They go on to win a World Series. I expect there to be a new manager in 2024.
It's an interesting juxtaposition from Minnesota because, you look across, to the other opposing dugout, they're pinch hitting with a 5-run lead. They're aggressive in their moves. And also the Twins have their superior defensive catcher on the bench. They're opting to go with their better offensive option. So it is just an interesting comparison between managerial styles and priorities. But to speak to that, I also found it interesting too. Dubon, who's been the center fielder of choice for Justin, or at least for Dusty, for Justin Verlander starts on Saturday, he went with Chaz in center field. Are you guys at least a little curious that we're not seeing, especially given that there's not quite the offensive disparity this year between Dubon and Chaz? Were you surprised to see Chaz start in both games 1 and 2?
I was in game 1, given Dusty had been pretty consistent down the stretch of valuing Dubon's defense and the arm specifically back of Verlander. And, with his denseness on the catching situation, it's kind of contradictory in that, hey, I want Dubon in there for the defense because with Verlander on the mound, I expect it to be a low-scoring game. We'll scratch out a couple, but we don't need to score 6-7 runs with Verlander there. So, hey, let's make sure the defense is the best it can be. Whereas when facing a really good pitcher, if you're throwing away outs essentially by going with Maldonado, it just don't jibe. So, yes, I was surprised in game 1. Dusty gave the rationale, the matchup of the pitching style against him. But, Chas McCormick, who overall has just had a sensational season, but he wasn't good in September. OPS September 1st on was 703. He's not had very good swings in this series. Did have the one ground ball single in game 1 for an RBI, and then a bloop hit, which essentially is a lucky hit. But a lot of bad swing and miss strikeouts, especially in game 2. Credit to Pablo Lopez. So, which way do you go? Game 3, game 4. McCormick still gives you the better power shot. Fairly expansive outfield, though, at Target Field. So do you think Dubon, Javier, a little bit more of a fly ball pitcher? How about the heavy lifting superstar guys? Do that heavy lifting in the road games if the Astros season is going to extend beyond Wednesday.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised to see Chaz out there. We saw them flip the script last season when it was Chaz when the playoffs started. And then if you look at the games they really had to have, the Seattle series and the Arizona series, Chaz started all those games except for the finale after he got hit in the back. And I think that was more about concern about that injury than anything else. I almost feel like Dusty's like, allow me the Maldi and I'll play your Chaz. You know what I mean? Like we get to pick one. I'm going to roll out Maldi. Dana, you get to roll out Chaz. I say that tongue in cheek, but I think there might even be a little something to it, a little bit of compromise going on. So that didn't surprise me with Chaz, but Chaz hadn't been hitting so great in September. Charlie's right. It hadn't looked exactly the same. Dubon has been pretty clutch, but no, it didn't surprise me at all to see Chaz out there in center. I thought that's what they were going to do. We'll see if that changes when they get in a bigger ballpark, but no, over this series, that's what I expected.